Well, good day, my friends, and welcome to the Hebraic Living Walking with Messiah broadcast. We're excited to have you here with us as we explore the rich traditions and teachings of Hebraic living, guiding you on a journey to walk in alignment with your Messiah. Now, whether you're seeking spiritual growth, practical insights, or a deeper connection with your faith, this show is here to inspire and uplift you. Now, in last week's episode, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare Part 4, we discussed how to go on the offensive by protecting your spiritual environment each and every day, and how petitioning prayers are not really spiritual warfare. If you missed that series, please go back and watch that 4-part series and share it with your friends and family. I think you are going to really benefit from it as you learn how to go on the offensive and fight the spiritual realm of darkness. Now, and today we're going to start a new series, which kind of dovetails into our last series. Today's new series is called AI and End Time Prophecy. And this is something I've been wanting to present to you, my friends, for a while now, and I finally got it all together. And we're going to begin today by discussing what is AI and how it ties into the book of Revelation and the end of the age. Now, remember, my friends, to plug in every Tuesday at this same time to see the show live. And you can also view it on demand on the lambnetwork.tv website. Each show is also recorded on the Daily Torah YouTube channel. Welcome to all of our new listeners. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single episode. And remember, share these messages with your social media friends and family. You never know whose life you may touch. Now, if you have your Bible and notepads handy, get them ready. And let's begin, because we do have a lot to discuss today, and I will try to get it all in. So I'm going to have to go off the stage here, and because the slides are so big and so informative. So I hope take screenshots if you want and share this with your friends and family. But today, in our part 1 episode, AI and End Time Prophecy. This is an exciting episode, my friends. I hope you get a lot out of it. Leave some comments. Let me know what you think about it, because we're going to go on for quite a few weeks here to really dig deep into this. Now, this is part 1, and basically we're going to discuss how knowledge shall increase. Now, this is about AI, about Revelation, and the end of the age. Now, this is just not a study on technology. It's a prophetic journey from Daniel to Enoch, from the Tower of Babel to the digital age, from ancient rebellion to modern artificial intelligence. It all ties in, my friends, going back from the beginning of time. This has been the plan of the enemy ever since he walked on this earth, ever since man was created. This is his plan for humanity. And my friends, everything is spiritual. By the end of this episode series, you'll see why the explosion of knowledge in our generation is not random. It's prophetic. It is spiritual. And it is part of a much older story, one that began long before the flood. Now, let's get into the prophetic pattern of forbidden knowledge and technological advancement. I'm going to take my time going through these slides. I really want you to grasp what's going on, because many of you, you may not have a handle on the technological advancements that are sweeping the earth right now. And it's all been foretold. And you're going to see how prophecy has foretold where we are today. This forbidden knowledge drives progress. Where do people get these ideas from? Where do they get this stuff to make up computers and AI and the movies that we see, the sci-fi, the Terminator series of movies, all these things that they have been putting in our screens and in our minds for decades? Well, seeking this forbidden knowledge has historically led to breakthroughs and advancements in technology and society. But where do they get this knowledge from? Well, we're going to get into that. But this technological evolution, this advancement, often follows the unveiling of previously restricted or hidden information. There's a reason that God wants to restrict some knowledge, because when mankind gets a hold of this knowledge, it has devastating effects upon him and upon society in large. And then God has to step in, just like he did during the flood. He had to step in, as we're going to see, because forbidden knowledge was shared with the early humans. In Daniel, we'll go here first. Let's go to Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. And let's look at Daniel's prophecy of exponential knowledge. Now, this intersection of AI and prophecy. Let's begin with the clearest biblical prophecy about the end time acceleration of knowledge. Daniel mentions this in Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. He says, "Seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." Now, my friends, let's explore some of the Hebrew concepts here and from Daniel 12, verse 4. This meaning of da'at, which means knowledge. Da'at represents knowledge, awareness, skill, and discernment, suggesting a deep and insightful understanding rooted in experience. The meaning of terbe, which means increase. Terbe refers to multiplying or growing exponentially, emphasizing abundance and increase beyond measure. You understand this explosion of knowledge, this explosion of understanding in the world around us, how things are multiplying beyond our control, it seems like. As soon as a new technology comes out, it's obsolete, right? And another takes its place as fast as it can come out. Man continues to increase and build upon the knowledge and the foundation, and it's getting faster and faster and growing at a tremendous speed in the world right now. My friends, this is spiritual and transformative power that we see happening before our eyes. These combining of these concepts shows the transformative nature of learning and spiritual growth in the Hebrew tradition. My friends, Daniel is describing a runaway, compounding explosion of knowledge, both good and evil. The exact pattern we see today. right? Many of you are probably dabbling in AI right now, maybe Chat GPT, maybe Grok, maybe Gemini, and you're using it to, you know, do searches, increase your knowledge, maybe put some things together. I used it for this presentation. I was able to go out and research things from all different sources much faster than opening up the books. Not that I used it all for this, but it helped put things together. Now you can create images, right? So easy. And how many people is it going to put out of work? All this new expounding of knowledge, just compounding, this explosion of knowledge that can be used both for good, right? And can cut down on your workload, help you do things faster if on your job, but it can also be used for evil. And mankind, through demonic activities, always finds a way to use what could be used for good to be used for evil. And we're going to see that explode around the world also. So let's look at the historical acceleration snapshot here. So let's go back and look at the early transportation methods. In 1800, travel depended on horses and carriages, setting the stage for future advancements in mobility. Then by 1900, we had the automobile revolution, and the automobile transformed transportation, enabling fast and more efficient travel across long distances. And then we had airplanes, and then we had the space exploration leap, right? We had trains before that. Little by little, things progress faster and faster. And now, by 1969, the moon landing represented an extraordinary leap in human ingenuity in the age of space exploration. Now we've launched out like the Voyager probes out into the outer reaches of our galaxy, right? And they continue to send back radio transmissions from space. Look at the Hubble telescope and how we can see far into the distant galaxies now, and we can see all the beautiful galaxies, even the birthing chambers of galaxies that are still forming, the nebulas, all the beauty that's in space that God created when he said, bara, it's still expanding. They talk about the Big Bang Theory. Well, that was God speaking and creating, and the universe is still expanding today. We'll never be able to reach the limits of it. It's too vast. And God created it all. It just didn't happen by circumstance. This earth just didn't happen to come into existence. This little speck in the galaxy with its perfectly balanced environment that can maintain life and have water and grow food, and we reproduce and we have intelligence, and we can go out and look at the stars ourselves and try to have some understanding on how they were formed and created. God created us in his image so that we too could have creative ability. And this is where the demonic realm enters in, because they too have a plan to use humans for their own purpose and for the demise of God's children upon the earth. Now, this digital and biological transformation, since the 1990s, we have the internet, and now we have artificial intelligence. Now we have quantum computing, which is going to be the next big explosion of knowledge. You know, if you ever watched Ant-Man and Quantumania, you know, they went into the quantum realm. You have a little bit of a taste. Evil always tells us what their plans are before they do it. And so they've been pushing the Terminator series. How long ago did that first movie come out? Right? And then artificial intelligence. You know, there was movies on AI and humanoids and robots and iRobot and all these movies that were psyching us up for the age that we are in now. Remember Star Trek? Remember in Star Trek back in the 60s, they did reports on what looked like little iPads today, and they had mobile communicators, which look like today's early mobile phones, right? Now, we're not doing beaming up and down yet, but who knows? They may be able to figure that out and be able to move objects around and figure out how to do that. What I'm saying, though, is this technological advancement, the evil one has already put it into the hearts and minds of movie producers, because he is the prince of the power of the air, right? So he puts it into the producers' minds to what to broadcast and what to prepare the humanity for his global takeover, which is what this series is all about. And then we even have genetic editing. They've transformed modern society. Now they can take DNA and cloning and all this stuff. They want to create new humans, and they want to merge robots with humans now, and transhumanism, as we're going to see as we go through here. It's all coming, and it's already here. Now, this explosion of knowledge, this knowledge previously doubled every century, showing slow progress in learning and scientific discoveries. Remember, we had the ancient ships, and then eventually we had the industrial. How long did it take from ancient biblical times, Roman times, until the Industrial Revolution? It took thousands of years, right? To be able to make that leap in technology. And then we had that explosion in the 1800s. And then modern accelerated knowledge. The technology and information sharing now cause knowledge, believe it or not, my friends, to double every 12 hours, marking unprecedented growth. As I said, as soon as something is put out on the market or created, it's already obsolete, and they're already on to the next version within 12 hours in many cases. Okay, I know that's hard to believe, but that's what's happening. It's continuing to double and increase faster and faster. In this prophetic vision of growth, the ancient predictions foresaw a future era with exponential increases in knowledge and information. And my friends, Daniel saw all of this. He was shown 2,500 years ago. Now, anticipating this knowledge eruption, this era of expanding knowledge, the Talmudic and rabbinic thinkers foresaw a time when both spiritual and secular knowledge would dramatically increase. The prophetic interpretations were already seen by the sages. They interpreted the ancient texts as predicting an age of unprecedented insight and revelation for humanity, right? We're starting to understand the ancient texts more and more. A lot of the ancient prophecies that before we just couldn't understand, especially in the book of Revelation, how it's all going to come to pass. Well, the technology that we have in the world today is bringing those prophecies to life. And then Judaism values lifelong learning, right? I'm president of the Messianic Discipleship Institute, and that's our motto: become a lifelong learner. And you can go to our website at mymdi.org, and you can see we have hundreds of courses there. We have some free, some paid. You can take a certificate in Messianic Studies. You can get a doctorate's degree if you want. And we help you become a lifelong learner based on the Lamad method of Hebraic learning, right? We don't accelerate. We go back and we take our time teaching you from a Lamad, a Hebraic mindset, right? Get away from the Greek mentality, and we put on the Hebraic mentality to be able to teach you the ancient texts and embrace learning for lifelong and to increase your knowledge of Scripture. But here, Judaism that values lifelong learning, it's expecting future generations to experience profound intellectual and spiritual revelations. And we're seeing that today. Now, many people don't like to read the Zohar, but I want to quote this from the Zohar on Shemot chapter 2, verse 32, because it says, in the 600th year of the 6th millennium, the gates of wisdom above and the fountains of wisdom below will open. Many rabbis interpret this as the wisdom above means spiritual revelation, and the wisdom below refers to scientific and technological advancement. And we're seeing that today. We're seeing this combination of spiritual and technology embracing and helping people to understand and to learn and to grow. And it can be used for good or it can be used for evil. Now let's take a minute to look at a very pivotal part in time, because this is the time that the Zohar is talking about, 1840, a year of innovation. So what happened in 1840? Well, the Industrial Revolution advances. The Industrial Revolution surged in 1840, leading to new manufacturing processes and rapid urbanization throughout society. It's also when steam power was adopted. Widespread use of steam power revolutionized transportation and industry, powering trains and machinery across nations, even the steamboats, if you remember. And we still have some of this being used today. And then we had the telegraph and communication. The telegraph was introduced, enabling instant long-distance communication and transforming the speed of information exchange. Imagine that. Who could think that Alexander Graham Bell could put two wires together and have them hook up, and you could place a call through them, and you could hear the person from the other end. You had a transceiver and a remitter, right? So you had a receiver and a transmitter, and you could hear and talk. It's an amazing part of technology. And who would give him the idea to even do this? It's amazing the things that we invented during this time. And then we had the birth of computing concepts. Even back then, the early ideas about computing emerged, laying essential foundations for future technological advances in information processing. It all had to do with math, learning about the binary algorithms, the zeros and the ones, and being able to put bytes together and to transfer that information and to have it transmitted and received and then interpreted into a language that we could understand. I have a degree in computer science. I remember back in the 80s, I was learning Fortran and assembler language. Those are some of the rudimentary languages that everything is based on today. I had BASIC. I used to program DOS. Remember the old DOS computers? I worked on the original IBM PCs, right? No hard disk. They just had a floppy drive back then, and everything was written to the floppy drive. And then it just kept advancing. The next thing you know, we had the 286. Then we had the Intel 386. Then we had the 480. And then the Pentium. And now we have these fast Intel chips and AMD chips. And now we have quantum chips. We have NVIDIA making all these chips that are far surpassed. Even your iPhone that you have today has more computing power than the old Cray computers had. They used to fill up a whole room for NASA to be able to track things. Now all that power is contained in your little iPhone. So it's amazing the technological advances that we have made in a very short period of time, 50 years, right? So what we see, my friends, is we have a dual outpouring of our time. We have a spiritual awakening. The sages believed the final generation would be marked by a dual outpouring, a spiritual awakening and technological upheaval. And that's exactly what we're living in. I remember during the dot-com era, some people made it, some people didn't. Even today, some companies that you would think would be in these transformative stages of advanced technology are no longer in the market. But now we have new companies coming on board with these new technological advancements. And we are witnessing, my friends, this rapid technological change. And we're witnessing this unprecedented advances in artificial intelligence. If you started using AI just like a year or so ago, it's already leapfrogged and double the capacity and double the ability to be able to produce results that we didn't have before. And it continues to increase with each generation, each iteration of that new technology as it's being released. And so we see this advances in artificial intelligence and digital connectivity transforming society at a rapid pace. And we see it all around us. Now, what about this balancing of technology and spirituality? Well, this era challenges us to integrate technological progress with spiritual growth, aiming for a more balanced and meaningful future. Remember, years ago, we just had the little Bible apps on our phone, right? And on our computer. And we had like Bible Gateway, Bible Hub, we had eSword, we had all these early Bible tools that we could use to look up scripture. And now they're on our phone. And now we can use Chat GPT or Copilot or Gemini or Grok to find us all the scriptures on a certain topic. Before we had like Nave's topical Bible, and we would have to go through those references with paper. And now everything is so technological advanced, and you can copy and paste, and you can send it to friends. You can make videos. You can make pictures and images. You can do all kinds of things now with technology for good. And spreading podcasts like we're doing here, right? We're using this technology right now to be able to spread this podcast and put it on YouTube and on the Lamb Network, and it's shared all around the world. Before, you would have to travel to places and preach from from an amphitheater or someplace like Paul did. You have to travel around and preach and write letters and have those letters sent and shared with believers. Well, now you can do that on Zoom, right? You can have Bible studies halfway around the world with Zoom and have people plug in. So all this technological advances that we have today, we see in the world around us. It's already here. Now, this is where it starts to separate. We have to understand, my friends, that yes, technology can be used for good and for evil. And this tech rebellion that we see today began at the Tower of Babel. It was the first technological singularity. The Tower of Babel represents humanity's earliest attempt to transcend natural limits through technology and innovation. It posed rebellion against authority. This collective ambition challenged divine boundaries, showing how technological advancement can lead to rebellion and transformation. And we saw this in the Obama and Biden era in the West, right? And we see it in the UN today. we see this technology being used in a perverted way. And they want to have one language. They want to have one plan, one global government. And they want to control you, my friends, with the power that they are giving themselves, right? This transformation has consequences. Innovation brought profound change, with the Babel story highlighting the risks and outcomes of surpassing set limits, as we're going to see as we go through this journey together. You know, back in Genesis chapter 11, verse 4, what did they say? They said, "Let us build a city and tower whose top is in the heavens." Now, many believe that there was a twofold thing here. They wanted to rebel against God. They wanted to reach the heavens. They wanted to get into heaven and get off of earth and dethrone God. But also, they wanted to set up a tower that was high enough that if God ever flooded the earth again, like he did during the time of Noah, they would survive. And that was one of their real reasons. They thought that if they unified, they could rebel against God, they could save themselves by building this high tower. And if he flooded the earth again to try to destroy them, they would be saved. And how many movies and how many secret documents have we seen where today, if you see that picture on the right, it's in Belgium, right? And that's their Tower of Babel today, right? And the UN meets there, and they have all this 2030 plan, and they have all these plans to have to wipe out a large percentage of humanity. And they also have a plan to create arks, right? Like Noah, right? You've heard about the ark. You remember seeing that movie where they created the ark, and they were hidden in caves, and they had all these supplies of food and water, and they were nuclear powered, and they were going to be able to last. I think there was like two movies. One, they were able to last the floods, like submarines and ships. They could float upon the earth and out in the ocean. And there was also ones that they could go into space. And remember that movie? I think it was a Pixar movie, Wall-E, where they were shipped out in space and they were able to eat and live in space until the earth was being able to be re-inhabited. Well, they're planning all this stuff. We know they are. There's so many leaks out there that they know that they're doing this, and they want to destroy humanity. That's why they came up with COVID. They were thinking they could wipe out a lot of humanity, take over the world, build their arks, save all the elites and the globalists, and they could all live in, protection and have enough food and water to eat and resources to maintain their lifestyle, but God usurped them just like he did in Babylon. He confused their language and everyone was scattered around the world. Well, God steps in when he has to step in. He lets mankind get to a certain point, and then he steps in and he says, enough is enough, and he disrupts the plans of mankind and the globalists and those who seek to rebel against God. So if we look at some of these Hebrew terms in Genesis, this Hebrew word migdal means a multifaceted structure. Migdal in Hebrew refers to a tower, a platform, or fortress, emphasizing its architectural and symbolic versatility. Now, the term Naaseh Lanu Shem means self-exaltation. They said, let us make a name for ourselves. And it expresses self-exaltation, self-deification, and the desire for lasting reputation or legacy. This is where transhumanism gets its roots from. And then They wanted to transcend the limits through technology. You know, Babel was humanity's first attempt to use technology to transcend human limits and become like gods. Today, AI and transhumanism echo the same ancient impulse. My friends, nothing has changed. There's nothing new under the sun. Same plan from the beginning in Babel with Nimrod and all his followers is the same spirit that lives with us today. Nothing has changed, and nothing, the goals are the same here now as what we see back then. Now let's go back even further to Enoch. Okay. Well, actually, Enoch came after, but let's look at Enoch in the forbidden knowledge. Let's look about the watchers. You know, Enoch talks about the watchers, right? Actually, Enoch came before Noah came. Nimrod and Babel came after Enoch. If you don't have the book of Enoch, I recommend getting a copy of it. I don't know why it wasn't in the scriptures. It should be. It's one of the most fascinating books, and it really fills in a lot of the missing material that we're seeking. So this forbidden knowledge that Enoch talks about, well, during his time, and it talks about it in Genesis, it talks about the watchers, right? These are the fallen angels known as the watchers that descended to earth. These are the ones that were cast out. They were sent here to watch us, right? And eventually they were cast out, and they were sharing forbidden knowledge with early humanity, changing their destiny. This is what happened during the time of Noah. These are the roots of rebellion. This transmission of secret knowledge ignited early technological advancements and spiritual defiance, leading to corruption and chaos. And it had spiritual consequences because seeking hidden wisdom brought about spiritual consequences, illustrating the dangers of transcending divine boundaries in ancient times. So, for us to truly understand the spiritual roots of technological rebellion, we must go back before Babel, before Abraham, before the nations were divided. We must go back to the days of Enoch. Now, look at what Enoch writes in 1 Enoch chapter 8. This is the gifts that the watchers gave to humanity. The watchers taught them the secrets of sorcery and occult arts. They taught humanity how to, they introduced them to magical arts that were previously unknown. Where do you think we get this knowledge from? Do you think we just made it up ourselves? No. Early humanity was given this forbidden knowledge. They were given weapon making and metallurgy. They revealed the art of weapon making and advanced metallurgy, enabling technological advances with profound consequences. Where do you think we get these weapons of warfare today? You think we just made it up as we went along? No, we were given this knowledge back during the early days, and now it has come to the fruition of where we are today. And then they taught them the cosmetics, right? It was like, oh, wow, well, cosmetics, what's so bad about that? But also they taught them astrology and divination. They taught these uses of root cutting and pharmakeia, right? That's where we get pharmacy from, and impacting society's moral and technological foundations. So not only was humanity being taught occultic practices and sorcery, but how to make weapons, and then about astrology and divination, and how to put spells over people and control other humans. Now, let's look at the Hebrew concepts that we're talking about here. This meaning of the word chokhmah. Chokhmah signifies wisdom, skill, or technological ability and can be used for positive or negative purposes. Now, the word Hamas, right? And we know about Hamas, right? But they usually spell it Hamas. But here we have the het in front of it. So we got Hamas stands for violence, injustice, or bloodshed. That's what that's what Hamas does, right? Over in Gaza. That's their whole purpose is violence, injustice, and bloodshed against God's people. And it reflects the negative aspects mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 11, it says, the earth was filled with violence, filled with Hamas. And then we get into the spiritual nature of knowledge. Knowledge is not always neutral. It can be spiritually weaponized, as highlighted in ancient Hebrew texts. The words that we speak out into the atmosphere have power. And the Watchers introduced humanity to the secrets of darkness, knowledge that accelerated human corruption, violence, and rebellion. And you see it all around us today, my friends, in society. And if you don't see it, then you're blind because it's all around us. And the church and those who have been entrusted with knowing God's word has failed society in combating this darkness that is sweeping the earth right now. And we are here to make a bold statement because we fight with the sword of the Spirit against all the wickedness of high places and principalities. We have spiritual warfare and weapons that we use against the darkness of today. But the Watchers brought about the birth of warfare, human physical warfare. They introduce weaponry. They create the creation of weapons, making the beginning of organized warfare and human conflict. How do you think we have all these wars all through the Bible from the beginning of time? Man against man, army against army, this person against this person, back and forth, fighting, uprising, all throughout history, even to today. We see the spread of the dark arts, right? And we see it today, right? All the occultic movies that we see. And then being practices of spiritual witchcraft that we see practiced today, Satanism, outright darkness right in front of our eyes, and they're not afraid to show it anymore. The Watchers taught humanity mystical practices and enchantments, influencing spiritual and ethical beliefs. And then they taught deceptive writing and knowledge and secret knowledge that they imparted, affecting communication and trust among people. And we see that today, don't we? We see the media, right? The mainstream media constantly telling us half-truths, distorting the truth, destroying people, and teaching truths that are not true. They teach lies that they say are truth, right? And if you ever read that book, 1984, what did they have there? The Ministry of Truth, right? And Atlas Shrugged. We see these movies when the media follows right along in their footsteps, right? 90% of the stuff you read on the news today is fake news. So it's very, very hard with AI now, as we're going to see, to be able to discern between what's true and what's not true. And I listed some of the angelic realm here. Azazel. Azazel is mentioned in the Bible. It's mentioned in Enoch here. He's the one who taught humans to forge swords, knives, and shields. And then Gadriel taught warfare and how to kill. And Penumui taught deceptive writing. And Kazdejah taught the smiting of the embryo in the womb. They were even doing experiments with embryos back then. Crazy demonic stuff that was going on, and God had to put an end to it, and he did. That's why he brought the flood. So, my friends, this ancient technologies also led into corruption. These advances, they were taught by the fallen beings, the Nephilim, in the human corruption when these angels and these watchers were cast down and they went into the daughters of men, and they had unions, and they created these supernatural beings, and humans resulted in the Nephilim, leading to widespread violence and moral decline. God had to put an end to it. Otherwise, the Nephilim would have wiped out all of mankind, all of righteousness. Noah and his family would have been completely destroyed, and evil would have swept over the earth, and God had to put an end to it. Such early knowledge was associated with the corruption of humanity, influencing both technology and societal values. My friends, Enoch gives us the missing details. The rise of violence and corruption wasn't random. It was engineered by the demonic realm, led by Hasatan, cursed be he. So why does all this matter for AI? Right? We have about less than 15 minutes left here for today's episode. So why does it matter? Well, the pattern is identical. Forbidden knowledge leads to rapid technological advancement. Back then, they had metallurgy, sorcery, occult sciences. Today, we have AI, genetic editing, and transhumanism. Knowledge without righteousness leads to corruption. Back then, they had global violence. Today, we have digital deception, cyber warfare, and moral collapse. It's all around us. And then, point number 3, humanity seeks God-like power without God. Back then, it was the Watchers' knowledge. They had all this hidden knowledge that was taught in the angelic realm, and they taught it to humans, which was it was forbidden by God, but they did it anyhow. Well, today we have super intelligent artificial intelligence. We have AI, and soon to be on the scene, quantum computing, which is going to make AI look like the locomotive back in the 1800s. And then point number 4, Yeshua said that the last days would mirror the days of Noah. Enoch is the record of the days of Noah. My friends, the same spiritual force that corrupted humanity before the flood is resurfacing. This time through digital, biological, and artificial intelligence. Now, let's go to Daniel 2 in our remaining time, and let's look at the prophecy of hybridization, mingling with humanity. So Daniel 2 tells us what Enoch told us and what happened during the days of Genesis with this co-mingling of the Nephilim with humanity. Well, now we have the suggestion of a mingling between non-human influences and humanity, implying a mysterious union in end-time prophecy. The ancient patterns are being repeated. The prophecy connects with ancient patterns of hybridization, reflecting recurring themes in biblical history and revelation. And this has a supernatural influence. The vision highlights a supernatural or non-human presence impacting the course of humanity, central to Daniel's message. So in Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, it says, they will mingle themselves with the seed of men. Now, that word to mix is called yit aravun, to mix, interweave, or hybridize, suggesting integration or blending. The seed of mankind phrase is to mix with the seed of mankind, indicating fusion with human lineage. And then there's the theme of integration. We see this as a prophecy of non-human entities mixing with humanity, whether spiritual, like in the case of the Nephilim and demonic realm, or technological or biological. We have three places where mixing and mingling can happen. Now, merging with others, there's the parallels that we see today. We have this blurring biology and technology. We have neural implants, right? Elon Musk creating the neural implants, and other people are creating the same neural implants. And these AI human symbioses are merging biological and technological domains, transforming human capabilities, right? We see these movies like the cyborgs, right? You ever watch the Star Trek, the Next Generation, where they encounter the Borg and they would take the humans and they would fit them with different hybrid Borg technology? And this is what's happening today. And we see these in other movies also. So we're going to see cyborgs starting to come up on the earth around us. So keep your eye on it. It's probably already happening, and pretty soon we'll see it become more and more common. Redefining humanity. We have this genetic modification and synthetic biology challenge that challenges traditional concepts of what it means to be human, right? Men want to be women want to be men. We got all these different transformations taken care of. Everyone's all mixed up. They don't know what they are. Well, and then we got like genetic splicing. We have DNA manipulation. We have all this stuff going on in the genetic realm. And then we get into the ethical and existential questions. Merging with radically different entities introduces deep ethical dilemmas for society and how we are to exist as human beings, right? We're all confused. Everyone's confused now of who they are and what they are. And they want to blend all this new technology and become like superhumans, better than what they are now, right? Well, this is all leading up to the birth pangs of Messiah. The societal and moral decline, the era before Messiah, is depicted as a time of growing insolence and widespread moral collapse throughout society. And no matter how well people today in the political realm are trying to make society a better place, we see the uprising of moral decay. We see the riots in the streets. We see the anti-Semitism increasing. We see all this debauchery going on. We see the Epstein Island stuff going on. We see all this pedophilia and this pornography and child trafficking. All this stuff that is happening beneath the surface is starting to rise up and trying to be influenced as societal norms. It is a moral collapse throughout society because mankind refuses to acknowledge their God, refuses to read the Bible, to accept Yeshua as their Messiah, and we are seeing the spiritual and moral collapse throughout society. We see it in the political and leadership corruption. How many people are on the take? Why do you think they pass all these nonsense laws? Because they're all getting bribes and kickbacks from all these interest groups. Government heresy and corruption in leadership become prevalent, undermining stability and trust in institutions. We see it all around us. Washington, D.C., Congress is a cauldron of demonic activity and corruption. I've never seen anything like it on the face of the earth in history today, but it is real, and we see it being unraveled, and we see it coming to the light even today. But then we have this normalization of deception, right? Deception becomes normalized. Truth declines, and global instability intensifies, echoing themes in modern technological upheaval. And so as we try to shine the light on this corruption and this moral decline, they go on the defense and end up trying to deceive us more and more until even believers don't know what's real and what's fake. My friends, in the book of the Sanhedrin in 97 verse A, it says, in the footsteps of Messiah, insolence will increase. The government will turn to heresy. Truth will be lacking. And we see that today, don't we, my friends? And then we get into this occult expectations of enlightenment. Now, I'll go through this really quick. We only have a few minutes left. But the new age and higher consciousness, these occult traditions anticipate a new age, encouraging humanity's evolution toward a higher state of consciousness and spiritual awakening. Artificial intelligence is often seen as a guide for spiritual progress, resembling a digital ascended master in some occult beliefs. And then we see this transhumanism, how it promotes the idea of self-deification, paralleling the self-exaltation described in ancient traditions like Babel. And we see, while Scripture warns of deception, the occult traditions celebrate the rise of artificial intelligence. The same spirit behind Babel, my friends, is what's driving this modern occult transhumanism. Now, the messianic takeaways on AI. My friends, AI's prophetic significance. Artificial intelligence is viewed as a marker of key prophetic changes in the current era. Technology is not neutral, but it carries values, profoundly shaping societal norms and behaviors. As believers, my friends, we need to remain discerning and uphold covenant principles amid technological advancements. And now the prophetic arc has been unveiled. The journey of knowledge. From Daniel's sealed book to the Watchers of Enoch, to Babel, to the digital age, knowledge has evolved from ancient prophecies and sealed wisdom to today's digital breakthroughs, shaping our current understanding. My friends, this rapid rise of knowledge in the digital age is seen as intentional. It marks a significant prophetic movement, and it signals that we are entering the final stages of this age. Now, next week in episode 2, we will explore the image of the beast, global theocracy, and how AI may play a role in the final Babylonian system. Until then, walk in wisdom, my friends. Stay grounded in Torah and keep your eyes on Yeshua. If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Jeffrey Clark. Thank you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.